Welcome to the latest episode of Gryphon Manor. Now in the last episode, I started with nothing and ended with a comfy cottage, lots of resources, and the foundation of what will eventually be a full estate and manor house. Now it was a pretty good start, but it's still light years from where I need to be or want to be. However, in this episode, I'll take a completely different direction, and while I'm set up for success at home, it's not entirely clear where home is, or to be more precise, how home relates to the surrounding region and what can be found there. Therefore, in this episode, I'm headed on the road. Or at least I would be if there were any real roads to speak of, which is just one more thing that I'll need to take care of eventually. But for now, I will just have to go walkabout. So I'll grab a few snacks, I'll put on some well-worn walking shoes, and head out to see what's waiting for me out there. Now, before I set out on this little stroll, I just wanted to point out that I've added a few new mods to the mix. First off, there's the Serene Seasons mod, which adds a calendar, seasons, and the resulting weather changes. The default value sets the year at 96 days, which works out to 24 days per season. Now, I tweaked that so that in my game, the year is 360 days with 90 days per season, and I'm starting in the spring. Now, this will impact which crops will grow at the surface. It also adds a nice touch to the game, and I'm looking forward to see how things unfold, but I may have to craft a scarf and mittens by winter. I also added a few Farmer's Delight add-ons that were not available for 1.19.2 last time I checked. Of course, those bring new foods and crops to the game, but I won't find them in the places I've already uncovered, at least not up to this point. But as I open new territory during this episode, I hope to find some of the new goodies and bring them back to the manor. And I'm off! Now, there's no specific goal to this episode, aside from that I'll be exploring the 25 square kilometers immediately around the manor. Now, that may sound like a lot, and maybe it kinda is. However, it really is just exploring the 2.5 kilometers out from the origin. And when you put it that way, it doesn't sound like a lot at all. Now, normally, I prefer flying for opening up new lands. However, this is still a brand new world, and I have a lot of materials to discover and bring back to the manor. And in most cases, the best way to spot many of them is to be on the ground. Besides, the airships in the Lanely transport mod are pretty iron expensive, and I have only a tiny iron reserve at the moment. In fact, it's so tiny I'm still saving up for my first anvil in this world. And another thing to consider is that I had to limit myself to vanilla structures in the overworld to maintain a decent level of performance. Now that is important, as these modded structures are amazing, but they're even more amazing and noticeable from the air. But without them, there's just the usual scenery and nothing special to stand out. So there's not much value in having the window seat on any given flight. There is a lot of land to cover, and I want to cover as much as possible with as few steps as possible. But I also want to make sure I don't miss anything big or interesting. And unfortunately, there's no kind of look here radar mod. Therefore, I have fallen back on the classic spiral search pattern. I set up navigation points in Journey Map, and then I follow them in order, which will have me running larger and larger rings around the manor. Now, each ring is 500 meters further out than the previous one, and so far it seems to be working well. While there's been plenty of beautiful country on this trip, I've not seen anything particularly newsworthy just yet, nor have I found a clean service station, or even a dirty one for that matter. And yes, that is a joke, but it's also a thing. The Lanely transport mod does in fact add lonely gas stations to the landscape, so yeah, I haven't found one yet. Now, one thing that I have started to notice, and it's got me a little worried, is the lack of warm weather biomes. Now, it's not like I want to go lay out on the beach or anything like that, but there are a lot of foods and materials in those biomes that I can't find anywhere else. So I would like to have a shot at finding them. And yeah, it would at least be nice to have the option to lay out on the beach. And I'm just saying. I'm also wondering if I'll find any of the rare biomes that come with the Biomes of Plenty mod. Now, one of the ones I would like to find is the Tropics biome. They have palm trees, and those trees produce a beautiful dark golden wood that I really like and want to use back at the manor. Unfortunately, it's one of the rarest biomes, and in fact, I've never encountered it in a survival game, and with the lack of warm biomes in general, my chances of finding it here are considerably lower. I figured it was just a matter of time before I found warmer biomes, and sure enough, it looks like I found them. Now I can see the distinct silhouette of mahogany trees, which are a key feature of the rainforest biome from Biomes O' Plenty, and the chances are pretty good that a proper vanilla jungle is not far away. I expect to find mahogany, jungle trees, acacia, and chocolate at the very least. Now luckily, this is Minecraft, so I don't need to worry about malaria, or cholera, mosquitoes, sunburn, or even overpriced safari tour groups, which is nice. I left the warmer biomes just a short while ago, and then I found this. Now it appears to be a massive island thrusting up out of the water, and this might be just the high ground I've been looking for as part of my efforts to find a decent supply of iron. With the changes in 1.18 and 1.19, iron is now more plentiful as you go up in altitude, and this island has plenty of altitude and attitude for that matter. So I'm hoping that my hunch plays out, but getting up onto that monster is not going to be as simple as just jumping on my little rowboat and onto the shore. And it looks like I was right. Now there's plenty of iron to be found here just by running around the surface. I suspect that if I set up a serious mining operation, I could find a whole lot more underground. But there's probably enough on the surface to meet any future needs for at least the short term, but I may be back to set up a more permanent extraction facility at a later date. And after a few hours more, I found this beauty. Now it's magnificent, and it reminds me of a giant impact crater. There's so much here that's of interest, and this is certainly a place that I'll want to return to at some point and take a closer look. Even aside from the raw beauty of this place and the secrets it must certainly hold, there are all sorts of building possibilities here, and that will take some time to digest, but I have ideas. And this is probably the final surprise of this little trip. As I was expanding the map in the warmer biomes, I discovered that there's a bunch of volcanic activity over here. Now I think that these volcanic plains are indicative of a actual volcano in the neighborhood. And there it is. With the volcano, I'm thinking that I might theme the warmer biomes as either Polynesian or Japanese. Now, both cultures are rooted in volcanic regions and extend into the warmer climes, but there's no need to rush into a decision right now. That'll be something else to think about for a while. The exploration phase of this effort's now done. It's time to look at what we found and start making plans. Now the area shown here extends a little past 2.5 kilometers in each direction from the manor. Now taking a closer look at the center of the map, we can see the manor sits here. Now it looks like the lands nearest to the manor are made up entirely of temperate biomes, so that will fit well into my vision of a Gryphonshire. There's also a number of existing villages nearby. I took the liberty of naming these villages. The closest is the village of Andover to the southeast, and to the north is Driftfield. Working eastward from the manor, we had the villages of Eastleigh, Broughton, Quigley, and Oldham. To the west, we have the villages of Ludlow, Kirkham, Jarrow, and Grantham. Of course, there are many more out there, but for now, I'm focusing on what I plan to be Gryphonshire. However, in looking at the villages that were placed by the game, I see that there are plenty of places where it would probably have made sense to add a village in real life. So I'll build new villages from scratch in these places. In the west, that would include the villages of Rothbury, Seaham, Ilkley, Holbeach, Torquay, Uppingham, and Chippenham. To the east, I will need to found the villages of Finchley, Murfield, Newport, and Verwood. Now, of course, I'll need to build roads, bridges, ferries, ports, and all the other infrastructure that would normally support traffic and trade between these settlements, and it's going to be a lot of work, but I've always intended this to be a long-term project to keep me busy and thus off the streets and out of trouble. I'm also toying with the idea of building a proper city, or at least a town. It's hard to be steampunky with just a simple village or estate, but a full-blown city with a monorail system and a rail and airship terminals, now that could be a really interesting project. And I might want to put that at the junction of 3 or more distinct regions so that I can theme the city with the cultures that border it. Now, again, that's something else to consider. Of course, this is all very tentative. I might reel it in a bit, or I might expand on it. Now, up to this point, I've only been concerned with Gryphonshire, which would be based on Victorian and Edwardian England, But with the discovery of the warmer biomes and the volcanoes to the west, I've been thinking about possible themes for the neighboring regions as well. As mentioned previously, the warm regions of the west will probably wind up as pre-contact Polynesian or early Meiji Japanese. The region to the north is likely to be themed German or possibly French. For the next episode, I plan to dig down to bedrock and set up landings at each of the planned underground levels of the manor, and as part of this effort, I will set the visual theme and patterns that will be used throughout the underground portion of the estate. The other option would be to survey a road to Andover and or start surveying and planning out the reboot of Andover itself. There's so much to do, and I'm looking forward to all of it. I hope you'll stick around and see how it all turns out. And with that said, I hope this finds you and yours in good health, good spirits, and a touch of good fortune. Take care of yourselves out there. Cheers.